I pulled up on the intersection and I saw the shooter coming from the cars actually right outside the church that were parked. His vehicle was parked, door open, engine running, and him and the neighbor across the street were both coming out about the same time, exchanging fire. The shooter got in his truck. The gentleman with the rifle came to my truck as the shooter took off, and he briefed me quickly on what had just happened and said that we had to get him, and so that's what I did. He just hurt so many people, and he just affected so many people's lives. Why wouldn't you want to take him down?
That was just one of two Texans who chased this church gunman, Devin Kelly, describing the pursuit which eventually led to Kelly taking his own life. Now, tonight, the country mourns for the Texans, all of them, their families who lost loved ones, and those that were killed in a church. While much of the country grieves for the victims, once again, the left rushes to politicize a tragedy, make it about gun control. Last week, remember the terror attack in New York? That wasn't a gun. Take a look.
Since I arrived at Congress this year, I've been talking about limiting magazine capacity in guns, and this is just another incident, probably the fourth or fifth this year, that could have been, if not prevented, certainly the damage would have diminished greatly if we had just made small changes to our gun laws that we have right now.
The Second Amendment in this case has nullified the right to live for many people in this church, and I think a national discussion has to happen.
Most of us are fervent supporters of the Second Amendment, but this type of, to your point, proliferation of mass casualty events like this, we have to do something. Not doing anything and expecting a different outcome, Chris, is the definition of insanity.
Oh, it's too soon. Oh, it's too soon. Really? We're not safe at school. We're not safe in church. We're not safe at concerts. Like, exactly when can we have this conversation? You're cowards.
Here with reaction is America First Action spokesman, senior advisor, our friend, former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke, civil rights attorney Daryl Parks. Why the rush to politicize? You know, at the end of the day, it's the fact that a neighbor got his gun. So many instances where people get guns, use guns to protect innocent people. Here's my question to you. If, God forbid, and we've known each other a long time, but God forbid you're in a situation where shooting is occurring. I've been licensed to carry in New York, Rhode Island, California, Alabama, and Georgia. My whole adult life I've carried a gun. Been trained since I'm 11 in the safe use of firearms. And if something happens, do you want me in the room next to you?
For sure.
For sure.
You want a neighbor with a gun there. But Sean, here's the deal. We've seen countless deaths from guns over the last few months and years. We have to have a response to what we do about these situations. In this situation here, we have a man who may have been mentally disturbed. We have to respond.
Well, we learned tonight that I think it was an oversight, probably innocent, that the military forgot to put his name into the database. That was a misstep. We can't have missteps. We got to be on our game.
We got to be on our game. And when those type of mistakes happen, people have to answer. And hopefully, the Department of Defense is going to answer. How can we?
But you want me in the room? If God forbid hell breaks loose, you want a trained. I'm actually, so people call my radio show, what kind of gun should I get? My answer is always the same. Well, what do you want to get trained in the safety and use of?
Well, I'll tell you.
What do you want to get trained in? You carry a gun.
I carry a gun. I have a concealed weapon. I learned as a Boy Scout. My Boy Scout troop taught me how to use a gun.
I don't like agreeing with you. Sheriff Clarke, help me out here. Daryl's making sense tonight. But the bottom line is, we would end school shootings if we had retired military or we had retired policemen in these schools. So if, God forbid, something happens, we have a first line of defense. And the same thing in churches. I know churches that in this day and age have multiple armed guards to protect those people that attend these services. Then they should.
Sean, three things in life are certain: death, taxes, and the Democrats and anti-gun movement politicizing a tragedy like we saw in Texas yesterday. This isn't about guns. They know it. But like you said, with breakneck speed, they race to a microphone or a camera to try to politicize the event, to take this out on people, the over 150 million people estimated in the United States that own guns, that would never do something like this. Our system of justice has always been predicated upon punishing those directly involved in a situation, not those that weren't. The NRA, the National Rifle Association, is the preeminent organization in the United States that talks about gun safety, that talks about keeping guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. They support that kind of legislation, but to take this out on the gun itself or law-abiding citizens who have guns is just plain wrong.
Daryl, why does you're politically a Democrat? Why is your side not understanding what you seem to understand? I don't, my parents, I won't say what they did, but they had law enforcement connections. That's all they did. So they didn't have the guns. I have a fingerprint safe all over my house, and you can't open my safe. And I'm a big believer in safety. But if somebody comes into my house, I'm going to protect my family.
Well, Sean, here's the deal. Without question, right now in Texas, there are over 20 people who lost their lives. I understood there were more than 10 still in the ICU today. We owe those people the truth. We have to do so. There has to be a response from our government to deal with this issue. We can't just not do anything.
You know, you say that, but what that left really wants is in many ways disarming law-abiding citizens. And this is just a fact. Evil starts in the human heart. And if you can't get a gun, you're going to use knives, or you're going to use a car, or you're going to use a truck, or you're going to use a bomb. Isn't that a fact?
That's
evil
true.
is evil.
That's true. But in this situation, we know that this gentleman's past started with domestic violence. We have to deal with that issue. That was the nexus of where it started with him. So
well, also the military. I mean, and Sheriff, listen, if the reports are true tonight and the military didn't pass this information on, that's a flaw in the system. And in that sense, you know what? If that's a mistake, we can't have these flaws because crazy people will do crazy things.
Right. Better record keeping, might help in this situation. But of course, the left just wants to target the gun. I've yet to see a gun laying on a table or in a case lift itself up, point itself at somebody and fire itself, even in a situation such as this. It just doesn't happen. This is the human element here, and there are some things we can do. The NRA has talked about it, but it's not taking guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. Had we done that, those two heroes who took that guy down after this event wouldn't have had the tools necessary to do that sort of thing. But of course, the left doesn't want to talk about how guns actually save lives in many more situations than what they take.
Last word, Daryl.
Sean, this is not a left or right issue. This is a human decency issue. There are people who are about to bury their loved ones in Texas.
Tell your party. That's your party that politicizes this.
But it's not a left or right issue. This is a life or death issue that we're dealing with.
Well, what happened, I mean, you go to church, I just can't fathom that we now have to have armed guards in church, in school, on every block, on every corner. Evil spreading.
Yes,
all right, thank you all for being with us.